Guess what I'm playing with? Yeah, my T190 once again. So it's been sitting here for a few months. I got a low pressure oil pressure cutoff on it. It hits 26 or 29 psi and then it shuts off. And the common fix for that, it's either spun bearing or something like that. I don't find any metal in the oil at all whatsoever. So I don't think it's bearings. You can't tell rod knock too easily on a diesel, but it doesn't seem to make too much noise there. Not the normal diesel noises anyway. And now I'm going to start taking the right side of the motor off. Basically the timing cover plate or the gear tape, whatever the gear drive for where the oil pump is. And the oil pump's just a teeny little thing, a couple of $100 worth. It's going to take, I don't know, a few hours to get to it. I'm going to start disassembling, and I'll show you a time lapse of that. But anyway, all the stuff on this side of the motor basically has to get disassembled. There's 3 pulleys, got to pull those off, of course, and then to get to the plate. And the plate is this whole thing right here. It just basically pops off. Oh, that's the theory. So anyway, I do have the owner's manual, shop manual rather, to do this. They're not very explicit on stuff, because normal people don't fix their Bobcats. They take them to Bobcat. But anywho, we're gonna give it a whirl, and it can't be more broke than it is. It still runs, of course, but when it warms up, the oil pressure drops enough to hit the electric cutoff, and then it basically stops. So put the oil pump in, hopefully that'll fix it. It's supposed to be, I believe, up to 48 psi or something like that when it's fixed. Right now when it's warm, it runs at 26 or 29, I can't remember which, and that's right at the cutoff point, so it's triggering the auto shut off. Anyway, let's get going, and I'll switch the time lapse and we'll see where we go later. Alright, so here I'm just basically do a quick disassemble where the fuel filler is. There's a cover that's underneath the hydraulic filter right up above it. I'm taking it off right now just so I have access to it. Throttle linkage, and then pretty much just disassemble some of the hoses, or disconnect the hoses for the coolant, and then later on try to get the pulleys off. So as with any other Bobcat project, the fun part is getting to everything. Let me show you what I got to work with. So I'm going to talk over my original recording. In hindsight, I don't think I had to disconnect the alternator, but I did anyway. Of course, I disconnected the battery before I started anything because I'm messing with wires back there. That could have stayed connected because I basically had to just undo the bolt that holds the alternator on the cover itself. You can kind of not see it at this point, but I'll show it to you later. And then, of course, I took out the hose for the fuel tank, so I have a plastic zip bag around it, just so I don't get water in there. So the plan is there's a whole bunch of bolts. I don't know how many in total. I'll say like 10-ish, different lengths. I'll find out in a bit. The cover comes off, and before I do anything, of course, I got to take the belt off, loosen up the alternator, take the belt off, and then start pulling the pulleys off. Alright, here's a fun one. So, it's a 1 7/8 inch. I'm not holding the pulley on for the crank, so I had to use this setup right here. Basically, I just have the pry bar put in place so I can actually get that nut off. Otherwise, there's no way to get an impact in there, so you can't make it work. But anyway, you just hold it in place against the wheels. And I already loosened it a little bit, so yay. That was a pain in the butt. So I think taking pulleys off is no fun, but it's... So I really lucked out on the pulley. It wasn't on there that hard. I actually just put the puller on there and then started twisting, and the pulley was coming off. It is keyed, so that's probably why it's not a full press fit on there, but I was lucky. I just basically undid everything with my hand. It wasn't, kind of awkward, but nevertheless, the pulley came off just fine, and easy peasy on that one. So I think putting it on is going to be just as easy. And to get this one off, and then I got to get the water pump off, because there's a couple of bolts that hold the cover to the engine block that are right by the pulley itself. So, and they're a couple behind this pulley as well. So here I'm going to show you a quick view of how dirty and everything else is looking there. For the most part, and this is probably my fault, I have one of the breathers on the front of the motor. I lost it. There was a little cap thing, and so I put a hose in it, and I run the hose up to the top of the motor and try to spit it out to the back. Although it doesn't quite, do air crankcase ventilation very well. I probably need to put a real breather on it and keep the oil in the crankcase, but it just puffs out just enough to get everything puked up over there. So all things diesel end up being very dirty all the time, plus the hydraulic fluid. There's probably little bitty leaks everywhere on this stupid thing. But anyway, so I'm using it's that purple cleaner from about 5 gallons of it from, I believe, Home Depot at one point. So it's that deep clean purple stuff. It's a little bit acidic, I think, and it actually cleans grease extremely well. Don't want to leave it on nice things too long, but it actually dissolves the grease. And I'm just going to use a regular hose and wipe everything down. There's no access to the block yet, so everything's still contained and waterproof. But I'm just going to squirt quite a bit of it. It's a concentrated solution I have in 5 gallons, so I put about half a quart, and then the water, and then I spray the heck out of everything, and then just wait for a few minutes. Then use the water hose and clean it up. Pressure washer would have done real good here. I just didn't feel like taking it out. But typically, these machines require a heck of a pressure washer hose out. In fact, the thing's been sitting here so long, it's got a little bit of mildew and junk on the outside of the paint, which is just Rust-Oleum white and other stuff. But anyway, I'll clean it up before I use it again, because I like things nice and clean. And it's so grimy in there working on stuff. That's why I'm doing the extra effort to clean it. It's just so much junk and stuff. You get really grimy, and I like being a little bit cleaner than that. So, anywho, clean it and go on. So here's me doing a little scrub down on it just to speed it up. I time lapse it a little bit. But anyway, I use the brush to get the grimy stuff off, and then I spray some more of the cleaner off. Wait a second or two, and then I hose it off, and it made the bolts accessible and stuff like that. So, anywho, I should have probably got the pressure washer out, but I just didn't feel like messing with it. But this works just as good. Okay, wow, that was fun. Not really. Wasn't so bad actually. I thought the thing that would give me the most trouble was the pulley. It did not. The hose is on the back of the motor, on the inside of the motor, which I guess is the front, towards the inside of the cab. They have 2 heater hoses, water hoses, and those are a pain in the butt because you can't really get to them. You can't really see them. Anyway, I managed to get the clips off, and I'll show you it real quick here. Kind of turn it sideways here, but all these bolts that you see sticking out, those are the ones holding the timing cover on. They're kind of everywhere, but not hard. It's loose. So at this point, I'm ready to pull this whole thing off. I hope I can get it past the crank nose and hopefully not have any issues. But so far, I'll say so good. Didn't take me too long to get here. I'll show you what I found though. There's a this is ready for major failure. You can see the screw was rubbing the bolt that's down here was rubbing the heck out of this hose. That's for the oil. It might be a cooler, that might be water, it might be oil, I don't know. Anyway, that hose is almost punctured. Maybe there's a small leak and why there's such a mess on the entire motor. These things are notorious for this kind of stuff. I don't know why they make them a little bit more, what do you call it, resilient. They run and run until they blow up the smallest part possible. So, a $1 hose will take the motor out. But anyway, I'm glad to be where I am. I'm going to pull the timing cover in a second. Maybe I'll do it on the camera. I'll put a time lapse though, just for fun. So I expected to be able to just actually yank the engine cover off, and lo and behold, there's a spring from just the actual fuel pump side of things. It's cammed. There's 2 parts to it, and there's a spring on it. So I didn't read in the instruction manual on how to undo that, so I figured it out and finally got the oil fill nozzle out, and there was a spring. Okay, sorry about the video. You can't really see too clearly, but there's a lever. Yeah, there you go. I put the flashlight on it. There's 2 little springs that are clipped on there. I'm going to use a little pick, carburetor pick, to actually take the springs off. It comes out quite easily. All right, success. All right, we got it off. So there's the cover. There's the springs. It's a double spring. It clicks on to the, I guess there's a pump, fuel pump shaft right here. It's a cam. Goes blah, 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 when it runs, I suppose. So here's a kind of a quick glance at what's going on here. There's the pump levers, and of course I'm showing you the front of the motor. That's the oil pump right there, the little thing on the bottom. It's a $200 item. It used to be, I think, 80 bucks or something. Anyway, there's a bunch of O-rings that I'm going to, I think, flashlight in a second here, that I didn't think I had. They were actually in the box with the new pump, so I was very happy about that. The funny part is, they gave me 3 O-rings and there's 4. I don't have a clue who does these things, but the parts are funny. No gaskets with hardware. You got to order everything separate, which kind of makes sense to some level, but obviously when you're taking the front cover off, they should probably make sure you have those gaskets when you ask for hardware. But anyway, I did find the gasket online, Bobcat. They had it. I just ordered it prior to making this video, and so that's on the way. I don't have to drive anywhere. They're being delivered, and there's a gasket underneath the pump as well, so I ordered those two, and that should be good to go. Anyway, the pump's not a big deal to change out, I don't think. We're going to do that next. So I wanted to use the impact to get that nut off, so there you go. That was actually, this is on time lapse, so it was very quick. It came off no problem. Then I wiggled, and the gear came off. I was hoping that the manual actually says to pull all the gears off. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So I just did the old pump gear, and now I'm using just a hand wrench to undo that. Then I go get a socket in a second, and I undo the pump. And I do find something that I don't think I did, but I'll show you that in a second. So here I'm shining a light at the gasket that was underneath the pump. It was broken, and I might have done that when I pulled the pump out, because these are very brittle at this point. But I don't know if this caused a low oil pressure condition, but it is a new pump, and it came with O-rings, which I'm very happy about. Same model number, so I'm happy about that. Can't put it on, of course, because I don't have the gasket that goes along with that. They seem to be very thin gaskets. Luckily, they provided 3 O-rings. And guess what? I need 4. That's kind of weird, but 2 of those. I need one smaller than that, and the big one that goes on the cover in these areas. These are the old O-rings that I put in there. This is for oil. And what else? I don't know if that's water. That might be water. This is water for sure. But anyway, so I got a new O-ring here. 2 of these, and this one, no. So I decided to start working on the Bobcat again today. It was bad weather, so it's sitting half outside, half inside, undercover. I just put a new seal in the crank snout that comes out of the motor. Put new hoses for, this is, I guess, water cooling from here. Another pipe. I didn't have the right inside diameter pipe, so this came out. It's a silicone heater hose. Came off from Amazon, and I had to wait to get all those items before I could continue. The big one, which I don't know why I didn't get this, but it's this thing. So I didn't order this until the beginning of last week, early last week, and it just showed up. So we're ready to seal the thing back up, put the pump on. I gotta scrape the seals off. So they use very hard gaskets on these Bobcats. I'm not sure what the point of that is. I guess maybe a diesel thing. But they're super hard, and they're not that easy to scrape, so I actually had to resort to using wooden chisels. You'll see that in a little bit. But anyway, it was a little more difficult. It took about a half an hour for me to do that. Okay, finally got it off. Yay, so that's what it looks like. Yeah. That's as clean as it's gonna get. I had to resort to using wood chisels to get the gasket off. It's some kind of a hard gasket. It's not rubberized at all. It doesn't seem like it. And it was very well either glued to the block or just from over time. You know, it's a 06 model, I believe, 2006. So it's been on there forever. Now I get to clean up the cover, do a little scrub pad, and I'll do the same thing on the block, clean it up, and then I'll reinstall the gasket. So here I'm using a scrub pad to actually clean the surface and anything I missed. Once you scrub it, you can see a little more remnants of the old gasket, so I used a chisel to remove everything until it was not perfectly flat. And in a little bit you'll see me putting the pump on. I put a gasket underneath it, of course, and then tighten everything up and then put the gear on. Everything went very simple on this, just basically make sure you put the key back on, and then I used a nut to tighten the gear on it. So the oil pump came with three O-rings, a big one for the water pump, you can see that on the bottom part of the cover, and two big ones that I'm playing with right there. They basically don't fit into the recesses. You kind of force them in there, but I got a feeling they're going to pop out when I try to put the thing on the motor. So I wasn't very happy with that. If there would be the next size down, it'd probably be even better. You just glue them down, squish them, and everything's good. So I used the old ones. Here you see the damage on the original. You can see how it was offset a little bit. So they did that in the factory probably. I don't know. Anyway, I reused the old ones. I put a little bit of gasket seal on it, and go ahead and use them. So here you see me using the old gaskets. I put a tiny bit of RTV on it just to hold it, and I'm hoping they don't fall off. They actually fall into the recesses very nicely, and I'm using the gasket, the RTV, just to hold them. I'm worried about when I put the cover on and I'm snapping it in place that they don't pop out of their location. It seems kind of a funny process to me, but anyway. And there you see the small O-ring right underneath the oil filter. That's the little one that I didn't get a replacement for in the gasket that came with the pump. So I don't know what to make of that, but there's 4 gaskets required. There's a water one at the bottom of the screen, you can see that one, and these 3. I've got the 2 big ones and the water one, but not the little one that I'm playing with right there. Anyway, I reused those. All 3 of those are reused. The one in the water is new, and that one snapped in just fine, so I stayed with it. Anywho, it is what it is. So now I'm putting the cover on. It's kind of hard to see. The door's right there and the camera's right there. This is the best vantage point. So anyway, I'm putting all the bolts back in. There's 4 different sizes, so I have to make sure I put the right bolt in the right hole. Once you put them in the right hole, it basically just sticks out about a ½ inch, and then you know you got enough thread to lock everything in. So I got all the bolts in, yay. Did find all the places, and the next thing I'm gonna have to do is put the throttle linkage back on, etc., and make that work. Actually, the pulleys as well. So you'll see me. I'm not sure why I put the throttle connector on right there. There, we'll take it off, and now I'm gonna put the pulleys back on, the water pulley and the crank pulley. That was super easy. You can't really go wrong with putting those on. The crank one is keyed, and the water one has 4 bolts on it. And of course, put the belt on, tension the alternator, and you're good to go. So here I'm just tightening all the bolts on the front of the cover. Make sure the right size bolt goes in the right hole. And next thing I'm going to do is put the pulleys on and the belt. So here I'm putting the upper heater hose on. This was a ½ inch inside diameter. I got that from Amazon. It's a silicone-based rubberized hose. A little better quality probably than the originals. The originals are all rubber, and they kind of bloat and deteriorate when oil hits them a lot. And diesel engines and oil and diesel fuel are everywhere. So for whatever reason, they deteriorate quicker. But anyway, this hose doesn't like to be kinked, so I had to make it extra long, make a nice loop, tie that in, and now I'm putting the pulleys on. That's the water pulley, and then next I'm going to put the crank pulley on. I did use the pry bar on the crank on the other side of the motor to lock it down, so I could actually cinch this down to the proper torque. Everything went fairly straightforward. This took me 3-4 hours just because I was messing with a whole bunch of little junky things. So I don't know how fast you're supposed to get this done, but anyway, I got it done. So there you go. You saw me put all the bolts in, blah blah blah. Got the pulleys on, etc. Got everything buttoned up. I got to do the connect the alternator and the fuel lever, and then basically plumb it, fill it with coolant, connect the battery, and then we're technically ready to fire it off. So we'll see how that goes. I did an oil change prior to doing all this work, so I don't think I need to do an oil change. But I did that oil change because just for whatever reasons, if the low oil pressure, just put clean oil in there. Put a new filter on there, a new sensor. That didn't change much. Hopefully that pump will do the trick. I hope to see 45 psi. Again, I don't have rod knock, so I don't know what else it would be. I'm crossing my fingers. It's like it's broke, so I threw parts at it. So there you go. But anyway, it's mostly buttoned up. Here's where the throttle linkage stuff goes. It's a pain in the butt because it's a little spring-loaded thingamabob right here. I have to thread the spring into that little hole through here and latch it onto this little bracket that you'll see it with the camera. But anyway, it's kind of a interesting setup. It seems, I mean, I keep saying it's overly complicated for what it is. There's probably a better way to do it. They didn't, so it is what it is. But anyway, everything's buttoned up front. Got the pulleys on, just got to do the throttle linkage, like I said. Connect the alternator, plus, minus, and the throttle, and then connect the battery, put coolant in, and hopefully it'll fire off. So we'll have our fingers crossed. I'll, of course, videotape that in real time. So the most fun I had, not really, was putting the throttle springs back on the throttle linkage. There's a little, that's the throttle linkage I'm holding in my hand, and there's a couple of levers inside that access point. That's where you fill the oil for the motor. Again, it's a Kubota motor. And there's two little springs that hit a kind of a sliding lever that was underneath the gears, if you saw the pictures a while ago. Anyway, that moves obviously and lets a certain amount of fuel in and not. The springs you see in my hand right there, they're pretty hard to get in there. They're easy to get into the hole, they're just hard to pull them so you could snap them on the lever. So this took me a while to get. It was very frustrating, and I had to blank out all the cuss words I was using because this was very, very annoying. Anyway, managed to do it after X minutes, and I'm going to speed. This is a sped up video, this part, but anyway, this required a little bit of patience. It took me, I don't know, 20 minutes to get this to work because I kept losing the springs, and then I had to undo everything, pull the throttle linkage out and redo it. But anyway, here you see me using a small pick. I finally kind of get it, and I get both the springs and put them on the lever, and everything works. So there you go. Well, in the end, I succeed, and then I put the cover on. Here I'm putting the bolts onto the throttle linkage, and then I'm going to put the fill tube for the cover, the open cover you see there. I did not get new gaskets for this, just because I don't know, probably don't need it. But anyway, hopefully it won't leak. Everything leaks on these motors, so whether it's a small leak or not almost doesn't matter. But anyway, here you go. This is the final steps of this. Almost ready to fire the thing up, and I have to connect the alternator. I don't show you all that stuff. I did all the alternator junk, connected it all up, put the electrical on, plug in all the sensors, especially the oil pressure sensor and some other wiring that's right by the oil filter, and fired it up, and it fired pretty quick. Hey guys, VTech here again. So this is April 23rd. You saw me change out the oil pump on the under the big front cover, put everything back. It started up right away. The battery's acting a little bit weak because I haven't run it for 3 months, 4 months, something like that, or maybe more. And I still had a low oil pressure indicator inside the cab, so I put on a physical pressure gauge, and it is showing 60 psi. I'm going to start it for you. So this is going to get a little bit loud, so I actually turned the volume down on the video itself. But anyway, it hit 58 psi, so I think we're golden. The oil looks great. Everything's thumping pretty good. But I did find a forum or a note that said that the sensor that I put on there, it was from eBay, puts out only 2.5 volts instead of the range from half to 7.5. So that's the problem itself. I still have another problem. This panel is flaky. Let me show you what it's doing. Oh, of course oh, there it goes. See? It just has a mind of its own. And sometimes it lets me actually do stuff. So I just took a video a few minutes ago and it was totally going nuts. Now it's letting me, now it comes to the password screen. What it was doing before was flickering, and it showed half of this and then nothing and then turn off. So whatever the hell's going on there, I don't know. It seems like there's a, it says there's a code. Now here's the screen I'm getting. Low oil pressure. I just got a Bobcat sensor, which was a nice 125 bucks. Threw it in there, and this is what I get. It actually runs at 10 psi. That's what it shows. I have a physical pressure sensor on it right now, and it'll show 55-ish psi. So I know I got pressure. The oil looks fantastic. Nothing's making any weird noises, but that's what it shows. So I'm looking for the 8-volt source. Oh, there goes the screen. So that's what it does as well. So I ordered a new screen. See how it goes wacky, turns itself off. I just ordered one of these. They are now a whopping $1,200 because half the time I try to start it, it won't start. The screen didn't allow me to put the password in and actually turn it on. And it does turn off whenever it feels like it too. So it's been doing that for a couple of years. Now it's pretty serious. So anyway, I have to break down and get this. We'll see what happens. It's May 5th. I just got the panel yesterday. I put it in this morning. I just punched in the the password, and we're ready to start it. Let me show you, see what's going on. See the oil pressure up there. It doesn't change a whole lot when I rev it. The funny part is the physical oil pressure sensor, let me walk back here, actually shows 55, 58 psi. So here I'm trying to test the voltage on the sensors, and I actually bought a little extension that clips into the sensor. It's a 3 connector. You can see I made a couple of junctions, and then I can sniff the voltage on my voltmeter while it's on. I had to wait for the panel to show up so I could turn the machine on successfully and actually probe the voltages on them. And sure enough, they were behaving exactly what they were displaying on the console itself, or the pad itself. So nothing new there, but I verified what they were showing and what the voltages were actually outputting. Hey guys, so it's a few days later. It's the May 11th. I have a confession to make. I ordered the wrong part for the sensor. Very accidentally, I went onto the Bobcat website, punched in my VIN number for the T190, and it's supposed to list whatever items you're looking for the machine. I put in oil pressure, and it pulled out, the very first one was a hydraulic oil pressure sensor. So when I was complaining about it only showing 10 psi, well, guess what? That's the default rate for the sensor itself, and that is not an oil pressure sensor. It's a hydraulic pressure sensor. Those are way higher. They were good enough for replacing that with the proper part number, and it is almost the same part number, but instead of a 6, it's a 5. So this is the oil pressure sensor. It doesn't really tell you, it just says switch, but this is the oil pressure sensor. The hydraulic oil pressure sensor is 316. So anyway, I got the wrong one initially. Guys were awesome working with me, sent me the new one. I'm gonna shove it in and let's see what happens. I'm gonna replace the old non-Bobcat sensor, which is probably not good. Although it didn't shut down the machine when I dragged it over here from the shop. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. I'll let you know in a second. Well, let's see if it works. Oh yeah, look at that. There we go. Woo, spiders. Well, that's a success, right? That's a Bobcat oil sensor. The aftermarket ones, which say they're compatible or not. The one I just pulled out of there was showing 25 pounds of pressure. So that means it's meant for some other pressure. Who knows what it is? Anyway, that's the first time I've seen oil pressure that good in this thing because of I think the wrong pressure sensor. And just for fun, we're having walking stick action. Look at that baby right there. That's a small one. Just for fun. That's a little bigger. So the orange ones are females. These green guys, they're gray-green. They're males.